Luka Modric didn't hold back after Croatia's controversial defeat, accusing the referees of doing everything they could to favor Portugal. Then, cameras appeared to catch him storming toward the officials' room. What happened next has everyone talking. Let me catch you up. It happened during Real Madrid's Copa del Rey semi-final against Real Sociedad. Extra time, Los Blancos had just clawed back a 2-goal deficit. And in the middle of that chaos, cameras caught Modric marching straight at the man in the middle. Referee Alberola Rojas. The broadcast footage is clear. During the opening stages of extra time, the referee could be seen shooing Modric away, and thus preventing the 39-year-old from having a conversation with him. Modric didn't back off immediately. He kept pointing, kept talking. Rojas kept waving him off like he was swatting away a fly. Here's what makes this moment different from a regular player-F squabble. As the captain, Modric was one of just 2 players on the pitch entitled to discuss decisions with the officials. This wasn't some midfielder mouthing off out of turn. This was the guy with the armband, doing exactly what the rulebook lets him do. And getting brushed aside anyway. The rule itself is spelled out clearly. Under IFAB's Law 5, the captain can approach the referee, but has to take responsibility for making sure his teammates respect the captain-only zone. Modric knew that. Rojas either forgot it or didn't care. And the context around Rojas didn't help him. Alberola Rojas has long been a controversial figure among Real Madrid fans, largely due to his name being linked with the Negreira case, the scandal involving Barcelona and alleged payments to referee officials. So when he's the one shutting down Real Madrid's captain on live television, it lands differently. It looks worse. Rewind a few minutes and you can see why Modric was so wound up in the first place. Real Sociedad's Ander Olasagasti had gone into Vinicius Jr. with a challenge at knee height, the kind of tackle that could have ended a season, never mind a match. The Real Sociedad footballer went forcefully on Vinicius and hit him with his leg at knee height, an action that could have had very serious consequences for the Brazilian's health. VAR said nothing. The most surprising thing was that VAR did not intervene, despite the images being clear and leaving no room for doubt. Vinicius was furious, the stadium was furious. And then the surprise. One of the Real Madrid players who never gets involved in controversies couldn't contain his anger. Modric, beside himself, went straight to talk to Alberola Rojas, who didn't seem to pay much attention to his words. That's Modric, 39 years old at the time, a player with 4 La Liga titles, 6 Champions League trophies, and 13 years of service to the club, a man who almost never raises his voice in public. And he's the one storming across the pitch at a referee mid-match. It wasn't a one-off flash of temper either. Rojas had already given Real Madrid reasons to be angry before that moment. Before dismissing Modric, he had already drawn the ire of the home crowd, with contentious decisions earlier in the match. VAR remained silent on a possible penalty for Jude Bellingham, while Rojas himself overlooked what could have been a red card offense when John Olasagasti hacked down Vinicius Jr. with a reckless challenge on the edge of the box. By the time Modric went marching over, it wasn't really about one tackle anymore. It was about 90 minutes of decisions piling up. Real Madrid still found a way to win that night. Los Blancos went into the match with a 1-0 advantage, but found themselves trailing 3-1 by the 80th minute, before Aurelien Tchouaméni and Antonio Rudiger scored on either side of Mikel Oyarzabal's late goal to secure their place in the final during extra time. But the story that stuck around after the final whistle wasn't the comeback. It was Modric on camera, refusing to just walk away, when he thought the referee had gotten it wrong. And once you start looking, this wasn't an isolated evening. Modric has a pattern here, stretching back years and across 2 different jerseys, club and country, to understand why a guy who rarely picks fights ends up walking straight at officials. You have to go back and look at every time it's happened before. Let's slow the tape down and actually walk through what happened at the Bernabeu that night. Because the referee's room moment didn't come out of nowhere. It was the final beat of 90 minutes plus extra time, of Modric watching decisions go against his team. The match had Real Madrid on the ropes for most of the night. Los Blancos went into the match with a 1-0 advantage at the Bernabeu, but found themselves trailing 3-1 by the 80th minute. That's a team staring down elimination from the Copa del Rey, in their own stadium with their season on the line. Real Sociedad had played the better football for long stretches, and the home crowd could feel it slipping away. Then Madrid dug in, they dug deep, with Aurelien Tchouaméni and Antonio Rudiger scoring on either side of Mikel Oyarzabal's late goal to secure their place in the final during extra time. It was a night when experience proved crucial for the eventual winners. That's the kind of scoreline that should have made it a celebration all around. Instead, the story of the night became about what the referee did and didn't do while all of that was happening. Go back to the Vinicius incident because it's the trigger for everything that follows. Olasagasti didn't clip him, he went in with real force. Leg raised to knee height, the kind of contact that ends careers if it lands a few inches wrong. the Real Sociedad footballer went forcefully on Vinicius and hit him with his leg at knee height, an action that could have had very serious consequences for the Brazilian's health. Cameras caught the whole thing in high definition. There was no doubt about what had happened, and still nothing. The most surprising thing was that VAR did not intervene, despite the images being clear and leaving no room for doubt. Not a card, not a review, not even a stoppage for treatment beyond the basics. The whistle just moved on. Vinicius's reaction told you everything. Vinicius's anger was evident, both at the time of the foul and after the final whistle. The Carioca and the entire Bernabeu showed their frustration over a refereeing decision that could have changed the course of the match. He wasn't the only one seething. The whole stadium had watched the replay on the big screen and reached the same conclusion the cameras had. That was a foul and it should have been carded. But it's what happened next that made the headlines. Because it wasn't Vinicius who lost it, it was Modric. One of the Real Madrid players who never gets involved in controversies. Couldn't contain his anger. One of the most striking reactions was from Luka Modric. Here's a guy who spent over a decade at the club being the calm head. The metronome, the one who talks teammates down rather than escalates things. And in that moment, he was the one who went marching straight at the man in black. The Croatian, beside himself, went straight to talk to Alberola Rojas, who didn't seem to pay much attention to his words. That indifference, the referee barely acknowledging him, is what turned this into a story rather than a throwaway moment. It's one thing to argue with a ref and get a response, even a hostile one. It's another to pour your frustration out and just get shooed away, like you're a nuisance rather than the team captain. Because Modric wasn't just any player making noise. He had standing here. As the captain, the midfielder was one of just 2 players on the pitch entitled to discuss decisions with the officials. That's not opinion, that's written into the laws of the game. Yet the extra time cameras showed exactly the opposite treatment. During the opening stages of extra time, the referee could be seen shooing Modric away, and thus preventing the 39-year-old from having a conversation with him. Picture that scene, the captain of Real Madrid, a Ballon d'Or winner, a player with more Champions League medals than most entire clubs have won, trying to get a point across calmly and rationally, and getting waved off like a heckler in the front row. That's the image that went viral. Not a shouting match, not a red card. Just cold dismissal, caught in high definition for millions to see. And then there's the man on the other end of that gesture. Alberola Rojas wasn't a neutral face walking into a clean slate that night. Alberola Rojas has long been a controversial figure among Real Madrid fans, largely due to his name being linked with the Negreira case, the scandal involving Barcelona and alleged payments to referee officials. Whatever the details of that wider scandal, the name alone was enough to make Madrid's fanbase suspicious of him walking into the Bernabeu for a knockout tie. So when Rojas made contentious call after contentious call, and then dismissed the captain trying to raise it, the framing wrote itself. Before dismissing Modric, he had already drawn the ire of the home crowd, with contentious decisions earlier in the match. VAR remained silent on a possible penalty for Jude Bellingham, while Rojas himself overlooked what could have been a red card offense when John Oligasti hacked down Vinicius Jr. with a reckless challenge on the edge of the box. 2 missed penalties, 1 uncarded reckless tackle, and a captain being brushed off, all inside one match. By the time the final whistle went and Madrid had somehow turned a 3-1 deficit into a place in the final, the football media wasn't just talking about the comeback. One headline summed up the mood perfectly. Rojas once again ensured he departed the Spanish capital as a villain on Tuesday night. And the image everyone kept replaying was Modric walking, pointing, talking, and getting nothing back. That single passage of play tells you a lot about where Modric's head was that season, but it doesn't explain why he was primed to react that way in the first place. For that, you have to go back further, to a Croatia jersey rather than a white one, and to a referee in Ocean and several years away. Modric storming toward officials didn't begin at the Bernabeu. It's something that's followed him around in a Croatia shirt for years, usually surfacing right when the stakes are highest. Start with Qatar 2022. Croatia against Argentina, a World Cup semifinal, the biggest stage football has to offer. Croatia lost 3-0, and normally a defeat like that gets absorbed with grace by senior players who don't want to take anything away from the opponent. Not this time. Modric, who often does not surround himself in controversy, had some choice words for Italian referee Daniel Orsato after Croatia's 3-0 semi-final defeat to Argentina at the Lusail Stadium, calling his performance a disaster. The flashpoint was a penalty call. It was the second Argentina match during the tournament that the Italian has officiated, and the 47-year-old awarded the Albiceleste a first-half penalty after Dominik Livakovic's foul on Julian Alvarez, which Leo Messi converted to give the South American side a 1-0 lead. From there, Argentina never let go. and Alvarez added a brace to make sure the scoreline reflected the gap that had opened up on the pitch. Modric didn't wait for a press conference weeks later to get it off his chest. He said it standing right there, moments after the final whistle. Argentina was a fair winner of the match. They were better, they deserved to win. But these things have to be mentioned. I generally don't do them, but today they have to be done, Modric said. I don't like to talk about referees, but this is one of the worst. That's a rare thing for him. He built his reputation over more than a decade specifically by not doing this, by letting his football speak and leaving the complaints to other people. So when he breaks that habit, it means something. It's the same restraint then explosion pattern you'd later see play out on the pitch at the Bernabeu. Now go back further to October 2023 and a much smaller stage, a European qualifier against Turkey and Osijek. Croatia were the higher-ranked side, expected to cruise. Instead, they lost 1-0, and the moment that went viral wasn't the goal, it was Modric's mouth. Luka Modric went crazy at the end of the Croatia-Turkey match. In the Euro 2024 qualifiers, after he was caught on camera, insulting the referee after a decision, the trigger looks small on paper, but clearly wasn't in the moment. Referee Anthony Taylor stopped one of Croatia's corners because Lovro Majer took it too quickly. So the Englishman ordered a replay, a quick corner whistled back. That's it, that's what set Modric off. That decision enraged the legendary midfielder, who insulted Taylor by calling him bald, which was clearly read from his lips, now on its own. That's a small, almost funny detail, cameras zooming in. Lip readers going to work, headlines writing themselves. But look at the stakes attached to it. The Croatian national team made an unpleasant surprise for its fans, losing 1-0 to the Turkish national team in Osijek, and with this, the third national team of the world from Qatar 2022 significantly risked its qualification for the European Championship, Germany 2024. A team that had just finished third at a World Cup was suddenly sweating a qualifying campaign, and their captain's frustration boiled over into a call so minor most fans wouldn't have blinked at it in real time. That's the through line. Across both incidents, Qatar and Osijek, it's never really about the specific call in isolation. It's about a player who spent his whole career being the calm, composed one, reaching a point where the accumulated weight of decisions, correct or not, tips him into a reaction that gets caught on camera and replayed for days. Then there's Scotland, November 2024, a match with real qualification stakes attached to it. Croatia's Petr Sušić picked up a red card, and Modric, protesting on his teammates' behalf, ended up with a yellow of his own. Luka Modric picked up a yellow card late in the first half against Scotland after protesting the red card shown to his Croatia teammate Petr Sušić. What made this one different is how he handled it. Instead of an explosion, he just laughed in the referee's face. He just laughed to his face. No shouting, no lip-read insults. Just open disbelief turned into a smirk, and the cameras caught. That too, it cost him in a very real, tangible way. The captain would now miss Croatia's upcoming match against Portugal due to the suspension, so by the time Modric was jogging over toward Alberola Rojas at the Bernabeu months later, this wasn't new territory for him, it was a pattern that had already shown up in a World Cup semifinal, a European qualifier, and a Nations League tie. Three completely different competitions, three completely different referees, and the same underlying storyline, a captain who usually lets his football do the talking, reaching a breaking point in matches that mattered. That pattern is exactly why the Real Sociedad moment landed the way it did. It wasn't shocking because Modric losing his cool was unprecedented. It was shocking because by then, everyone watching already knew what it looked like when he finally did. Every one of these flashpoints has two sides to it, the player reacting and the official on the receiving end. And in the Real Sociedad game specifically, the identity of the referee mattered almost as much as the tackle. That sparked everything. Alberola Rojas wasn't walking into a neutral situation that night. He arrived at the Bernabeu, already carrying a reputation among Real Madrid's fanbase. And it wasn't a good one. Alberola Rojas has long been a controversial figure among Real Madrid fans, largely due to his name being linked with the Negreira case, the scandal involving Barcelona and alleged payments to referee officials. That's important context because it means every contentious call he made that night got read through a specific lens, before the ball was even in play, when VAR stayed silent on a Bellingham shout that got filed under suspicion. Rather than simple oversight, VAR remained silent on it. Possible penalty for Jude Bellingham, while Rojas himself overlooked what could have been a red card offense when John Olagasti hacked down Vinicius Jr. with a reckless challenge on the edge of the box. Two missed calls in the same match against the same team by the same official. Add in the Olagasti tackle on Vinicius, going completely unpunished. And you've got a referee who, fair or not, had built a stack of grievances against him before Modric ever started walking his way. The Real Sociedad footballer went forcefully on Vinicius and hit him with his leg at knee height, and the most surprising thing was that VAR did not intervene despite the images being clear and leaving no room for doubt. This is where Modric's approach to Rojas takes on a different weight than, say, his blow-up at Anthony Taylor over a quick corner in Osijek, or his outburst at Daniel Orsato after the Argentina semifinal. Those were single flashpoint decisions in single matches. Rojas represented something bigger, an official whose name was already tied, fairly or not, to questions about integrity in Spanish football before he'd even stepped onto the pitch that night, and the way he handled Modric's approach only added fuel to that. During the opening stages of extra time, the referee could be seen shooing Modric away and thus preventing the 39-year-old from having a conversation with him. He didn't argue back, he didn't explain his decision, he just dismissed the conversation entirely and did it to a captain who, by the actual letter of the rules, had every right to be standing there. As the captain, the midfielder was one of just two players on the pitch entitled to discuss decisions with the officials. Under IFAB's Law 5, the captain will be able to approach the referee but must take responsibility for helping ensure that their teammates respect the captain-only zone, meaning Modric had every right to speak with Rojas. That combination, a referee already under suspicion, refusing to engage the one player legally entitled to question him, is what turned a mid-match spat into a lasting image. It wasn't really about whether Rojas got the penalty calls right or wrong in isolation. It was about the optics of dismissal captured on camera, layered on top of a reputation that already had cracks in it. Compare that to the officials in Modric's other flashpoints. Anthony Taylor, an experienced Premier League referee working a qualifier, made a technical call on a quick corner, correct, debatable, whatever you want to call it, and it triggered a lip-read insult rather than a physical confrontation. Referee Anthony Taylor stopped one of Croatia's corners because Lovro Majer took it too quickly, so the Englishman ordered a replay. That decision enraged the legendary midfielder, who insulted Taylor by calling him bald. No storming, no marching across the pitch, just words from a distance. Daniel Orsato, working the World Cup semifinal, got the post-verbal treatment instead, Modric waiting until the whistle blew and the cameras were rolling in the mixed zone before delivering his verdict. Argentina was a fair winner of the match. They were better, they deserved to win. But these things have to be mentioned. I generally don't do them, but today they have to be done, Modric said. I don't like to talk about referees, but this is one of the worst. Again, no marching, no in-game confrontation. Words after the fact. Rojas is the outlier. He's the one who got the in-game march. The pointed finger, the attempt at a face-to-face conversation while the extra-time clock was still running. And that's precisely because of the stakes in front of Modric in that moment. A knockout tie slipping away, a teammate nearly seriously hurt by an unpunished tackle, and a referee with a name already tangled up in one of Spanish football's biggest scandals. None of that guarantees Rojas did anything wrong that specific night. Referees miss things. Contact at knee height doesn't always get seen clearly in real time, even with replays available. But context shapes perception, and Rojas walked into a match already carrying baggage that turned every one of his decisions, right or wrong, into something bigger than a single call. That's the backdrop against which Modric's approach has to be read. Not just a captain unhappy with one decision, but a captain unhappy with one decision made by a specific official with a specific history in a match his team was in genuine danger of losing. All of that stacked up in the space of about 90 extra time seconds, and the cameras caught every bit of it. The Real Sociedad game wasn't the only time a referee-related blow-up followed Modric and his teammates off the pitch. Months later, after a different, even bigger occasion, the Copa del Rey final itself, the frustration didn't stay out on the grass. It followed the players straight into the dressing room. Real Madrid lost that final to Barcelona in extra time in Sevilla, and the defeat clearly didn't sit well with anyone in white. The defeat to Barcelona in extra time of the dramatic Copa del Rey final in Sevilla left a deep mark on the Real Madrid team, and there seems to have been discord within the dressing room. Reports out of Spain described something well beyond disappointed silence. Specifically, it said there was a heated argument between the players, even a brawl, with Antonio Rudiger, Jude Bellingham, and Vinicius Jr. being the most vocal critics of the referee, accusing him of causing the loss. That's three separate voices, all pointing in the same direction, at the official, not at their own performance. Rudiger loudest of all, according to the reporting that followed. but not everyone in that room agreed with where the blame belonged. Another group of players, including Luka Modric and Kylian Mbappe, supported self-criticism, believing that the team itself was to blame for the failure. That's a split dressing room after a final loss. One faction furious at officiating, another insisting the players needed to look at themselves first. And Modric wasn't just standing on the sidelines of that disagreement. He was reportedly right in the middle of it, specifically clashing with Rudiger over how much blame the referee deserved. The conflict between Modric and Rudiger in the locker room happened precisely because of the German's angry outburst towards the referee. Modric was among those who tried to calm him down or refute his behavior and accusations against the referee. Think about what that says about Modric's role on this team. In one match, he's the one storming toward an official himself, frustrated enough to break his own decade-long habit of staying calm. In another, he's the one trying to talk a furious teammate down, arguing the exact opposite point, that the team, not the referee, needs to take responsibility. That's not a contradiction, that's a captain. Someone who reacts hard when he feels an official has crossed a line that genuinely changed a result, like the missed foul on Vinicius against Real Sociedad, but who also knows when a team is using the referee as cover for its own shortcomings, and isn't afraid to say so to his own locker room, even to a player as combustible as Rudiger. It's worth remembering what Rudiger himself brings to a dressing room like that. He's not a quiet personality. He's been at the center of plenty of confrontations across his career. And by most accounts, he was the loudest voice blaming the officials after that Sevilla defeat. Antonio Rudiger, Jude Bellingham, and Vinicius Jr. were the most vocal critics of the referee, accusing him of causing the loss. Getting between that and calming it down isn't a small task. Vinicius's involvement in that dressing room argument connects straight back to the Real Sociedad night, too. This is the same player who took the brunt of Alice Agasti's tackle to the knee. The same player who felt VAR let him down when it stayed silent on a clear, dangerous challenge. The Real Sociedad footballer went forcefully on Vinicius and hit him with his leg at knee height. And the most surprising thing was that VAR did not intervene, despite the images being clear and leaving no room for doubt. By the time the Copa del Rey final rolled around, Vinicius already had plenty of reason to distrust officiating in high-stakes matches. So did the rest of the group. Bellingham's presence in that locker room argument fits the same pattern. He'd already had his own shout waved away by VAR in the Real Sociedad semifinal. VAR remained silent on a possible penalty for Jude Bellingham. Add that up across a season, Vinicius nearly injured and ignored. Bellingham's penalty shout waved off, and then a Copa del Rey final lost in extra time. And you get a dressing room primed to blame officiating the moment things go wrong again. Modric in that context becomes the stabilizing force rather than the one losing his temper. He's the one who, weeks earlier, had been the exception to his own rule and gone marching at Rojas himself. But when it's Rudiger doing the shouting, Modric's the one trying to pull it back, insisting the players look inward instead. It's the same captain wearing two different hats depending on what the room actually needs from him in that moment. That duality, reacting hard when he feels a genuine wrong has occurred, but pulling teammates back when he thinks the blame is misplaced, is arguably the clearest picture available of how Modric actually operates as Real Madrid's on-field leader. It's not that he never gets angry at officials. It's that when he does, it tends to mean something specific has genuinely gone wrong. And when it's someone else losing control, he's often the one trying to bring the temperature back down. That balancing act would follow him one more time, on the biggest stage left in his career. A stage where, this time, there was no locker room left to retreat to afterward. The pattern that started with a lip-read insult in Osijek and built through a World Cup semi-final. A yellow card laugh against Scotland and a march across the Bernabeu pitch found its way onto one more field. Toronto at the 2026 World Cup in what's believed to be Modric's last match for Croatia. Croatia met Portugal in the round of 32, and it delivered exactly the kind of ending that had defined so many of these earlier moments. A contentious officiating call, right at the death, deciding everything. The match delivered late drama, goals, VAR reviews, and ultimately a powerful post-match embrace between two legends, swinging back and forth from the outset, with Croatia taking the lead in the second half through Ivan Perisic before Portugal responded with an equalizer from Ronaldo. And the match also featured controversy, with a late Croatia goal ruled out for offside after a VAR review. That disallowed goal is worth pausing on, because it's about as technical and modern a version of the referee decided the game as football has ever produced. FIFA later confirmed that, according to connected ball technology housed within the official match ball, Contact was made by Croatia's Igor Matanovic in the build-up to the goal, allowing the referee to correctly determine offside and disallow it. With sensors capable of detecting even the slightest contact and displaying it to viewers as a heartbeat graphic, the stadium reaction mirrored everything that had come before. Croatian fans were left furious as projectiles were thrown onto the pitch, leading to a lengthy delay in the match. And on the pitch, the emotional toll on Croatia's players was obvious. Croatia's star Mateo Kovacic was left in tears post-match, while legendary midfielder Modric was in shock in what appeared to be his international farewell. This time, though, there was no marching toward the fourth official, no lip-read insult, no locker room shouting match caught by a leaked report. Modric's most memorable reaction came away from confrontation entirely. Modric was consoled by Ronaldo, his former Real Madrid teammate, after the final whistle. Two players who'd spent years side by side at the Bernabeu, ending up on opposite sides of a knockout tie, sharing a moment that had nothing to do with the officiating at all. But that doesn't mean the frustration with the officiating disappeared. It just found a different outlet. Croatia's manager, rather than Modric himself, was the one who put it into words afterward. "It was very bad refereeing," he said. "You were able to see to what extent emotions had been killed, and altogether all these decisions take you back and actually take the joy out of football. VAR kills emotions, it kills everything within you." That's the same complaint Modric himself had voiced in his own words years earlier about a different referee, in a different semi-final on a different continent. "I don't like to talk about referees, but this is one of the worst. The specifics change: Orsado in Qatar, Rojas at the Bernabeu. Taylor in Osijek, now a VAR system with sensors built into the ball itself in Toronto. But the underlying frustration is consistent across a decade of Modric's career. A sense that at the biggest moments, control slips out of the player's hands and into the hands of officials and technology. What made Toronto different is the finality attached to it. For Croatia's 40-year-old legend, it was surely the end of his World Cup career. And it is the end of an era for Modric, who will be 44 when the next World Cup takes place in 2030. There won't be another World Cup semifinal to blow up at a referee in. There won't be another qualifier corner kick to get waved back on. Whatever comes next for Modric, it likely won't come with a national team badge on the chest. He'd already been hinting at exactly this before the tournament even reached its final stages. The midfielder had already hinted that he was approaching a defining moment with Croatia, saying, "I know I have reached a certain phase in my career." And just days before the Portugal match, there'd been one more milestone to mark, a moment that had nothing to do with controversy at all. He had brought up his 200th appearance for the national team when Croatia defeated Panama in a group game. And at the end of that game, Modric was lifted into the air by his teammates to mark reaching the milestone. No such lift came after Portugal. There were no such celebrations this time for Modric, who made his Croatia debut in 2006. Instead, the ending arrived the way so much of his career with officials had gone. A contested call, a wave of frustration from his camp, and Modric himself absorbing it rather than exploding the way he had in Osijek or at the Bernabeu. Former teammates and pundits picked up the thread where he left off unsaid. "It is very harsh for Croatia to go out like this for Luka Modric. Probably his last game in the World Cup," former Brazil midfielder Lucas Leiva said. That's the tone the whole tournament ended on for him. Not fury, not a march toward the fourth official, but something closer to resignation, shared by people who'd watched him fight these battles for years. So that's the arc. A player who spent a decade rarely raising his voice at officials, who then, across a stretch of matches that mattered more than most, found himself walking straight at referees, laughing in their faces, mouthing insults picked up by lip readers, and pulling furious teammates back in locker rooms after finals went wrong. Every one of those moments got caught on camera. Every one of them fed the same story. A captain who mostly lets his football answer for him, until the stakes get high enough that he doesn't. Whatever comes next for Modric at club level, the pattern established across Osijek, Qatar, the Bernabeu, and Toronto isn't likely to just vanish. It's part of how he's played the biggest moments of his career. Not with silence, but with a willingness, when it matters enough, to go straight to the source of a decision he doesn't accept, camera crews and all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.